All right, so I spoke with my landlord. Good news there. He's totally fine with a new teacher coming in or me completely, leaving the place and having someone else come in and do everything. He just wants to get a contract drawn up with a real estate agent. There's actually one right across the street from my school, so that's pretty cool. And then also he's thinking about what to do with the rent. He gives me a bit of a deal since I'm technically a family member. It's my brother-in-law. Uh, but it's not, super deal. It was really, really expensive for me when I first started. Um, I was paying a lot, and when you don't have any income, even $10 is a lot. So, anyway, so once he decides what he wants the rent to be, if he's going to keep it the same or raise it, then I can start asking around and seeing if people are interested. I think as far as setting a price, I'm just going to ask for what people offer me. Sometimes they might actually be willing to pay considerably more. Or if it's some ludicrous figure like $2,000, I'm going to say, sorry, man. So it's a good position to be in. Hopefully I can get, something for the school since the salary at my new job will be initially less money than what I'm making now. Um, but then again, I'll have way fewer expenses, which is really nice. That's one thing that really gets you if you open a business. It's tempting to think like, back in the days when I worked for my first job here in Japan, I would add up the rough estimate of what the school was making, based on my own lessons and my coworkers' lessons and how many students were in there. You can get a rough estimate of what the school's pulling in every month. And in my own case, I was making about I was bringing into the school almost twice what I was actually being paid, and that kind of upset me. I was like, man, how come I'm doing all this work and then my boss is making all the money? That's often how it goes in business as well. There's a lot of reasons for it. One is the boss took the initial risk of starting the business, and so they have a lot invested in it in that sense. And a lot of times, if you do start a business for the first, well, at least in my case, I know for sure, for the first few years, you're going to end up making way less than what you were, especially if you start from the beginning, from zero, from the bottom. And then, of course, also, having invested all that risk, also you're also in charge of like the taxes and all the other expenses, paying rent, power, water, everything, the furniture in the place, So initially, you put out way more money than anyone else in the company, and then the point of it is down the road you should start making more as well. So that's what got me into it in the first place. But as anyone who's watched the past few months knows, those days are shortly coming to an end. My wife suggested this morning. She said I should give a notice of 3 months to students, and that seems kind of a lot. It's typical like Japanese over the top thinking. I think at the most I can give about 6 weeks. So, announce in mid-October and then be out by the end of November. It's not. I don't know how to put it. It's not like the students have invested all this money into it, and like some schools will have you pay like a year in advance for the entire year. It's month to month, and it's not a huge amount of money. And I'm gonna do my best to find a really good replacement. The people I have in mind have been running their own English school for I think more than 10 years. So they opened in 2010, but I can't remember what time of year it was. It was probably the spring or late winter, which is the best time because you get the influx of everyone starting something new in spring. So they would be really ideal. And then of course there's other options. I hope. So there's a lot to sort out, but sometimes in life you kind of have to just decide like, okay, this is a priority, this comes first, this is what I'm gonna do, and then all of the logistics behind that will somehow fall into place. As long as you're not reckless and inconsiderate and trying to rush things, I don't think there's anything wrong with that type of thinking. In Japan, there's a really strong emphasis on things being like just drawn out, mapped to the nth degree. It's not always realistic. Things happen. I run this place by myself. I don't have a lot of leeway in that sense. If I have an opportunity that's better in the long run, and this opportunity is better in the long run by a few orders of magnitude, I would say. Even in terms of income, if I pursue this opportunity and really make myself valuable, I could probably triple my income. That's pretty good. As well as have opportunities to travel home more often and just travel in general. There's going to be a lot of sacrifice in terms of time. It looks like I might be working half days on Sundays for a while. Hopefully not full days, because the afternoon, that's like my precious puppy time with my kids. I don't really get much else outside of that. So there's, that's how it goes. Whenever you start something new, you kind of, generally speaking, you're going to start probably in a position that's not as good as the one you left. A lot of times, not always. That's not by any means true all the time. But I've done pretty well here. I've got a pretty good lifestyle in terms of running the school. It doesn't really take a lot of upkeep. I've consolidated my classes pretty much as possible. There was a period there where I was teaching classes back to back that were using the same textbook and stuff, and I just talked to the parents and said, can we put these kids together? And so that's really the best way to do it. So my point is that it's worked out that the time in class to income ratio is really, really good. There's a huge amount of open space on the schedule, so let me think off the top of my head. Yeah, I could probably add like another 12 to 14 classes and still be within the average big school working schedule of say 20 to 25 classes a week. Right now I think I'm at around 12. And a lot of that is I've been focused on university classes until very recently, and then also I just don't really want to take on a lot more classes because it takes away from study time and times I could be doing other things, which is a sign that maybe it's like so many other things have occurred recently, that it's time to move on. I shudder to think if I did this another 6 years, another 10 years, literally nothing's going to change, and that is not a good position to be in, because life is only going to get more expensive for me. It's not like life is just about money, but on the other hand, if you don't have the money to do what you want to do and for your family, not just for yourself, then that's really not something you should be too proud of. It's better, in my opinion, to lay the groundwork so that in the near future, income is not as big of a worry. It's not something you always have to ask yourself, do I have the money? Always having to forego things because so 3 kids, I live 5,000 miles away from home. I'm nearing the end of my 30s. I've done my level best here in Japan to generate as much opportunity and income as possible, and I suppose if I don't know, maybe got really seriously into selling on Amazon or started some kind of online company, I might be able to do significantly better, but it's a big opportunity cost, and I just don't feel the drive in that regard. I think for the time being, it's a much better idea to just pursue software development and get really good at it, because that makes you very valuable wherever you are in the world. You're not going to get wiped out by someone else. Like in the case of selling on Amazon or some kind of online business, you can get taken out overnight by someone with a better product at a cheaper price, or by Google's search algorithm. That's happened to a lot of people, because when you're online, you're competing with the world. There's so many talented people out there, but as a software developer, you're you're not competing with anyone. There's actually a shortage of good developers in the world because a lot of people they just give up. They don't want to take it on. It's too difficult, too scary. So I think that's a good avenue to pursue. It's funny how much I invested in carving out my little bubble here in Japan. I mean, really, if you take the effort it takes to learn Japanese, you could become an amazing developer, and you'd be making 100 grand a year pretty quickly, relatively speaking, within 3 to 5 years. I would say no more than 6 or 7. And I spent, almost the past 13 years now over here teaching English, studying Japanese, networking in the community, and I'm really not making much more than, after expenses, not that much more than like an ALT, really, which is a good salary here, but you go back home, to Seattle. My brother's getting his doctorate in social work. My sister's been with the same company for like 5 or 6 years. She's in kind of mid-management. I could barely afford to even rent an apartment and have a car over there. So it's something I've had to change. It's my own responsibility. People sometimes take these views of being, middle class and moderately wealthy is somehow kind of dishonorable. Like it's better to be poor. I don't really believe that, and I think especially if you're a father and you have, children in the plural who depend on you, and of course even just one child, if you have opportunities to increase your income and you're not pursuing them, I think it's a little bit irresponsible. What are you going to do in the future? Tell your kids, sorry kid. That's what happened to me actually. My parents were really poor growing up because my father had a spinal injury and wasn't able to work anymore when I was in kindergarten when it happened, and it just derailed our future. We came really close to losing our house actually, and that's what I grew up with. I turned 18 and my parents were like, you got to find your own way, and I did, but it wasn't easy by any means. I lost a lot of time, and I didn't get a very strong start. And looking back, I should have been way more focused on learning something valuable. I went straight into art school and found myself a year later out of that school. I couldn't handle it. It was just like, no thank you. And then, making like $800 a month and living. You could do that at that time. You could live in Seattle for that much. Renting a room in an apartment and just riding a bicycle. It was a great time, but I did that for like the next 7 years. Like very, very little about my lifestyle changed because I just didn't have the framework, the focus, the direction, And not to blame my parents, they did their best. As they were dealing with a lot. But again, if you don't come across the causes and conditions in your life that motivate you to improve, in the form of friends who have that kind of knowledge, or teachers, or interests in some kind of trade, or just one day walking down the street and realizing like, what's the big deal? Why can't I do that too? If that doesn't occur to you, you can spend an extremely long time in your limited belief system going nowhere, and that's no good. So anyways, I'm kind of getting off topic here, but so hopefully I'll be hearing from my landlord about the details, because I would like to kind of start sniffing around sooner than later for a new owner, buyer, and get things rolling. It's a little bit emotional, when I see the kids in class and stuff, and I don't know how everyone's going to take it. I like to think they'll be understanding. I wrote a letter, drafted a letter, I should say. It's in English still, explaining the situation. That I've got 3 kids. I'm American. I've invested a lot over here. I'm very grateful to the community and to your support. But if I don't take action now, if I don't take advantage of this opportunity, I don't think it'll be a very good idea, basically. And hopefully they'll understand that. A few years ago, when I was dealing with that other company for a support position, I mentioned it to the parents, which may have been a mistake, I think. I'm lucky they didn't get upset with me and leave, but a few of them said they really understood that, as someone who's not Japanese and living so far away, being able to get back in touch with your country and work with your, fellow compatriots it's a pretty cool opportunity, So we'll see how things go. That's it for now, and until next time.